Dear young adults, Om Sai Ram. Welcome to the May workshop for the Sathya Sai Young Adult Talent Development Program 2018. Before we kickstart today's workshop, let's pray to our beloved Bhagavan for his blessings to ensure the session runs smoothly. Dear Bhagavan, we pray to you to seek your guidance to deepen our understanding and broaden our thinking. Swami, with your divine blessings, may the skills that we develop from this workshop be used to aid us all in our daily lives. Today's session will be facilitated by Sister Sharanya Naidoo from Australia. Sister Sharanya went through her Sri Sathya Sai education in human values in Newcastle, Australia. In 2007, she was selected to be the regional youth leader of New South Wales, and recently she was appointed as the study circle coordinator of the Nuna Wading Sai Center. Sister Sharanya was also one of the keynote speakers at the National Sai Conference held in Murwillumbah. She has just returned from a trip to New Zealand where she delivered a talk at the Zone 3 Beyond 2020 Youth Festival. Her talks always promote self-confidence and how to listen to your inner voice. Professionally, Sharanya has worked 9 years as a physiotherapist, but has now transitioned into relationship coaching. She mainly works with singles who want to settle down and get married. She has a video blog that focuses on how to listen to your inner voice. Sister Sharanya, the floor is all yours.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining me, whether it's early in the morning or in the evening, wherever you are in the world. The session today, the webinar today is all about being loving in difficult situations. So I know that Swami's with us and we're going to have a beautiful, rich discussion. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so today we're talking about how to become more loving. I wanted to start off with this beautiful quote from Swami. And as you know, Swami always addressed us as embodiments of love. It's not just about thinking about love and processing what love is, but it's about embodying it, which means every cell in our body is charged with this energy of love. And that's what fuels our thoughts and words and deeds. And so this quote from Swami is so perfect to start with. He says, live in love, live with love, move with love, speak with love, think with love, and act with love. This is the best and most fruitful spiritual endeavor. So when I see this quote, I get so inspired because it is just all about love, love, love. But at the same time, it can also be very daunting because it really is a challenge to live in love and with love and move and speak and think and act with love. You know, how do we do this at each and every moment? And the truth is, it is a challenge. But Swami beautifully says that life is a challenge, meet it. So let's explore how to be loving in difficult situations specifically. So we've got the question, the chat box open. If you've got any questions or comments, just feel free to pop it in the chat box, and we will try to get through as many questions as possible, especially at the end of the webinar. As you're listening to the content for the first 40-50 minutes, think about a particular situation that you are now finding challenging. So something that's relevant for you right now, something personal, something relevant, and just have it in the back of your mind. And as we go through the content, notice if any.
Saram, everybody. It seems like Sister Sharanya's audio has gone off. Please bear with us while we try to reconnect her.
Fantastic. Thank you, team. So in this webinar, we're going to cover 3 things. The first is some contributing factors to conflict that make situations difficult. There are definitely way more than 5, but I'm just going to focus on 5 contributors today. Next, we're going to go through 5 helpers that help us stay loving. It's just little things that I use to keep in the back of my mind, just to help me remember my sadhana plan and Swami, and the fact that I am divine and everyone's divine, and it's just some little key helpers in staying on track and staying centered. And then lastly, we're going to go through 5 difficult situations, and that'll be really interactive to see what would we do in these situations, and how can we untangle them from being difficult. Okay, so 5 contributors to conflict. In the message box, write down some ideas on what makes a situation difficult. I'm going to go through 5, but I know that there's certainly more than 5. Okay, so the first one, a misunderstanding and differing expectations, which is the first thing that comes to mind whenever we think of conflict and communication, and just interaction with other people. It's so easy to have misunderstandings. If you look at the 2 diagrams or the 2 pictures below, you can be looking at the same thing as someone else and seeing something completely different. Is it a 6 or is it a 9? It's actually both. It's just different perspectives. And then with the 2 gentlemen in the suits, they're talking about a mouse, but they have completely different pictures in their mind. And so it's so easy to miss each other when it comes to communication, just miss the mark, and that can result in challenging and difficult situations. And one of the main, one of the main contributors to conflict is assumptions. Is when we just assume what someone is thinking and feeling, and even what their intentions are, and we create a story in our head, and then we run with that story, and that becomes our truth, when in fact that might be so far from the truth, and we won't know unless we investigate further and ask them more questions. So assumptions is something that really contributes to difficult situations and misunderstandings. Next slide, please. Okay, so along with misunderstandings and assumptions, there's then the lack of communication and empathy. And it's not just not communicating with someone, but it's not being willing to communicate with another party. So, that's when perhaps you yourself, or you come across someone who needs to be right. You've got a perspective, you've got a point of view, and you're so adamant that it's right, that it actually breaks down communication. And then there's intolerance. for other people and their behaviors and their personality characteristics, their traits, and not understanding, not giving people the space just to be themselves. We can be intolerant, and so we reject certain aspects and we accept other aspects, and that can really contribute to a breakdown in communication and prejudice as well. So, you know, we all come with our history when we interact with people, and that makes us who we are. And sometimes we don't even know in what ways we're prejudiced. But underlying our communication, these little ideas and thoughts can really hinder our connection to other people. So as a small, simple example, just imagine a young teenage girl is going shopping with her best friend, and they're picking out dresses, and you know, they're both trying on dresses, and the friend says to her, you know, I just don't think green is your color. You know, try this really beautiful yellow dress on. And the girl says, oh, you know, yeah, that's a great idea. You know, thanks for sharing that with me. And she's more than happy to try on the yellow dress, and she feels very supported by her friend in wanting her to look her best. And then a few weeks later, she goes shopping with her mum, and they're looking for outfits. And her mum says to her, look, I just don't think that dress is flattering on you. How about you try this one? And the reaction is so different. You know, she gets a bit hostile and angry and upset and snappy. And so what that illustrates is that you can be in two exact same events and have completely different reactions based on the history you have with that person. If there's a lot of conflict already in that relationship, then we bring that energy into any new interaction we have with that person, and then we're prejudiced towards them in how we respond. So it's important just to, I mean, it's so difficult to start fresh and new with each person, but just know that certain people will create different responses in us, and sometimes not the healthiest response. But just to know that that can happen in relationships, especially long-standing relationships. There is that history there that can create some difficult situations. And then, you know, the unwilling to compromise. That's more about, you know, digging the heels in and not willing to empathize with someone and be in their shoes and try to come up with a solution to the problem, rather just wanting to be right. All right, so this is the best slide out of the whole webinar. I'm glad you guys stuck around. I'm a huge Avengers fan, and I've always been a fan of the Hulk. But, you know, this really perfectly illustrates one of the contributing factors to a difficult situation, which is stress and uncontrolled emotions. And we all experience this. We're human beings. It's part of our experience. But, you know, stress turns us into something else. It can bring out the worst in us. It can also bring out the best in us, where we work really well under pressure, but it has the potential to bring out the worst in us. And so when we're under stress, we react in much more abrupt, harsh ways than we would if we were just centered and relaxed. And so when you come across someone and you're in a difficult situation with them, just know that we've all got different aspects of our life, and they might be carrying a lot of stress in a particular area that you can't see, and that's making them behave differently. So, you know, you might be having family stress at home, and it's very hard not to bring that energy to work as much as you try to switch it off, but you can bring it to work, and that affects your relationships at work, and vice versa. Okay, so cultural differences is the fourth one I've got here, and I've put it up because what can appear as arrogant or rude or something that is offensive might be a cultural difference. So, for example, in Japan, holding someone's eye contact for an extended period of time is interpreted as aggressive and intimidating and rude and disrespectful. Whereas in the culture I grew up, which is South African culture and Australian culture, looking someone in the eyes when you're talking to them is a sign of respect. And so we've all been raised differently in different cultures and different family cultures as well. And so what's normal for us might not be normal to someone else. And that might contribute to a situation being difficult because, again, you're looking at the same thing with completely different eyes. So that cultural aspect in the back of our mind, if we just remember that this can be something that's not intended to be offensive, it's just indirectly a mismatch of cultures. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones, especially in the SSIO organization, because we have so many different generations interacting with each other, which makes it a beautiful organization. But then there is that potential for conflict when two different generations behave in different ways. So I got in trouble once for texting an elder instead of calling them. You know, it was explained to me that it's disrespectful to just send a text rather than to call. Whereas I know in my own cohort with my own peers, texting is so normal and respectful because you're giving the person the chance to reply and call when they are ready to, and you're not interrupting their day. And so, you know, just these differences. The differences between the generations is it can be a potential for conflict. And so if we know that, you know, we're talking to someone in a different generation, what we're doing with our best intentions can sometimes be misinterpreted or just misunderstood as being disrespectful. And so with that second example, the definition of respect, I know with my grandparents' generation, respect meant being obedient and listening to what we say and following what we say. And that was a sign of respect. You don't talk back, you don't argue, you don't really put forward your point of view in an equal way. But in my generation, respect means allowing someone to be exactly who they are, which is a very different definition of respect. And so when we come across older generations, we just have to know that, you know, they are coming from a different place than us, and they're not meaning to be, or well, no one's meaning to be offended or offensive. It is just a mismatch of what we think is respectful. And that's just one example of intergenerational differences. Next slide, please. So those were the 5 contributing factors. We've got, so someone said lack of control and poor communication also contributes to, you know, a situation being difficult. So now let's explore 5 things that can help us stay on our path. And these are 5 things that, you know, I've just picked up in life along the way that's helped me, and I just wanted to share it with everyone. It's 5 things that help me remain loving when I find myself being judgmental, when I found myself being angry or upset or sad, and it's things that kind of get me back on track. The first one is just remembering that love is our nature. So no one really needs to teach you how to be loving in that regard. We're born loving. And Swami's whole mission was about getting us back to remembering that and knowing that and realizing that. And so this webinar is really about the practice and the behavior of being loving, but in the back of our mind, something that helps is just knowing that love is actually my nature. I am naturally a loving, kind human being. What we have is layers of Maya and illusion that keep us away from our true nature. So this beautiful quote from Swami really dives into this. And he says, adore love, live in love. There is no greater education than this. Traverse the path of love. Partake of the food of love. It is not enough if you merely partake of love. You should also assimilate and digest it. Only then the essence of love will spread to every cell of your body, giving you immense strength and wisdom. Today's education is leading to agitation. True education lies in assimilating and digesting the principle of love. You are the embodiments of love. You are filled with love. And this is my favorite bit. You may not know this, but I can see love in you from top to toe. What a beautiful, beautiful message from Swami. You know, he always says you're embodiments of love. And that's not just about thinking about love, it's about embodying love, which means every cell in our body is charged with love. And wherever we go, whatever situation we find ourselves in, that is the energy that we bring into it. And so that means that, you know, no one needs to teach us how to be loving. It's inherent within us. It is our nature. So our task, like Rumi says in this beautiful, beautiful quote, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And this is what we're going to explore in this webinar. Next slide, please, for the second helper. So this really helps me, just knowing that seeking and finding the barriers to love is a skill that can be developed. It just makes me relax about the whole situation because the first quote from Swami that we said right at the beginning, you know, it's a huge quote. It's infusing every single moment with love, which is difficult. And so knowing that it's a skill that can be developed, just like driving, just like riding a bike, it's something that we get better and better with the more and more we consciously practice it. And this is the path of sadhana. This is what Swami came to teach us. And he's given us so many ways to bring us back to this place of knowing our divinity. And so this is our journey back to God, back to source. And it's a journey back to love. But knowing that it's a skill that can be developed helps me understand that I don't have to know all the answers right away. There will be more and more challenging situations that I will face that I will learn to be loving in as they arise. So it's not an on and off button. It's something that develops and it's organic. So I was facilitating a study circle a few weeks ago, and one of the uncles there said something really beautiful. We were doing scenarios and what's the loving version and what's the unloving version. And this particular scenario was focused on ourselves and being loving towards ourselves. And without going into any of the details, what he said was, okay, yes, this person was angry in this situation. But maybe what they could think is, well, last week I was angry for 1 hour and I couldn't let it go. I couldn't get it out of my head. But this week, when a similar thing happened, I was only angry for 10 minutes. And so that's an improvement. And so I can actually celebrate that. So rather than, you know, being upset and feeling guilty for getting angry itself, knowing that we're improving incrementally. So if you think about who you were 5 years ago, we're so different. And in 5 years' time, we'll be even more different. So just allowing ourselves to have a journey and just to focus on the journey rather than the destination will help us be loving towards ourselves. Okay, so the third helper is that we are all souls incarnated. And this message came to me when I found myself many, many years ago being really judgmental towards other people. And the thought pattern that was going through my head was, this person is so much wiser. You know, they should have known better. They should know better than to do this. They were just talking about this on stage, and then I just saw that they did something different. And the message that I think Swami gave to me, you know, through my inner voice, was that this person is not 50 years old. They are thousands of years old. And so when we encounter people, if we think, no, that person's not 20 years old, they are thousands of years old, they are a soul, they have come many times before. This is just the newest journey in their experience. And so remember this quote, we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. It kind of gives us permission to let other people off the hook. You know, age is not really a factor in where we are on the spiritual journey. You could meet a 10-year-old that is wise beyond their years. And what this does is it takes away judgment from the spiritual path for ourselves and for other people. And so if we remember that we are all souls incarnated, when we come across difficult situations, we just have to realize that Swami has an individual curriculum for each of us. And wherever someone else is in that curriculum is really none of our business. We just have to focus on our inner world and how to purify it and how to be our best friends on this journey, and focus inward rather than outward. So we just focus on our own path rather than anyone else's. Okay, so number 4 is all about belonging to each other. We belong with each other. And so this is all about thinking, you know, when things get difficult sometimes and this thought crosses our mind, wouldn't it be easier to go and live in a cave on a mountain, to just escape society completely and just go live by myself with Swami and the trees, and it would just be so much easier. But this quote from Swami really, really explains that we belong with each other. You know, human beings are a social species. And Swami says, the cultivation of social consciousness is very important. Man cannot live in isolation like a drop of oil in water. He is a product of society. He has to live in it, grow with it, and work for it. One must join others in common tasks and contribute one's strength and skill to the common pool. A single thin string cannot bind even an ant, but hundreds of them twisted into a rope can hold back an elephant. This is the effect of united effort. It is a desirable trait to work for a common cause with others in cooperation. So this is the challenge, and this is the challenge that we must meet, that it can be very difficult, being loving in difficult situations with difficult personalities, with different mindsets, but that is the challenge. We are part of society. We are a social species, and that's our role. It's our role to find a way to be loving and to find our way back to ourselves. And so just remembering that, no, I am not allowed to check out and go live in a mountain. I belong in the society, and I must meet the challenge and all the challenges that come with living in a society full of very different personalities. It is the challenge that I must face. So that just helps me pull myself back into line whenever I feel like checking out. So the next slide, please, for the 5th one. Okay, and we touched on this before. So the 5th helper is to not only think about being loving to other people in those difficult situations, because often we're thinking about how can I be loving to this person and love them and make sure they feel loved. Don't leave yourself out of the equation. Be loving toward yourself as well. And even quite often I feel it's even more important to be loving towards yourself, because if you're loving towards yourself, it is a natural consequence that you will be more loving externally to others. Swami says, plant the seeds of love in your hearts. Let them grow into trees of service and shower the sweet fruit of Ananda. Share this Ananda with all. That is the proper way to celebrate the birthday. So this is in a birthday message that Swami gave. And what I love about this quote is that he highlights that we are planting seeds of love. And a tree does not grow overnight. It grows with time. It needs the sun. It needs water.
Oh my God!
Nourishment. It needs nourishment. It means that we can allow ourselves to grow and have a path that unfolds before us. We're not just focused on the destination, but we're focused on the journey, and we can allow ourselves to make this journey. So are we able to use?
Yeah.
Thank you. So it just allows us to know that it's a journey, and it's a long journey. We can allow ourselves to be to make mistakes and to not get it right every time. And sometimes, you know, the lessons need to come 3 or 4 times for us to really develop the skill in that particular area. But it's all about growth, and it's all about learning more and more how to live in the energy of love, and that also needs to be directed inward towards ourselves. Next slide, please. So I love this little picture. It's all about letting ourselves grow. And, you know, we're the person on the right who says, you know, when told you've changed, the response is, I'd hope so. So just again, you know, when you reflect who you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, we're very different, especially if you're consciously putting effort into your sadhana and to your own growth. You will be so remarkably different as the years go by. And so 10 years' time, the challenges that you're facing today will seem so small and so simple and so easy. And so just know that when you're going through something really challenging and you're trying to face something that seems almost impossible, that you will find a way through it. And that is why Swami is our guru. He helps bring things to light for us that helps us grow, takes things out of our blind spots and puts it in front of us so that we can address it and face it. And so when we're facing something difficult about our own personality, that is Swami helping us, showing us a barrier that we have to love. And so we see it as a challenge, and an exciting challenge to then deal with whatever he's placed on our path in front of us. Okay, so let's get stuck into the 5 difficult situations where sometimes we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I'm going to present different scenarios, and I'd like you all to tell me how you would react, or how would you feel if this happened to you, if this was something that you faced. So let's move to the next slide. The first situation or scenario I've called a small box of chocolates. So just imagine that it's your friend's birthday in 2 days, and you know that they really like chocolate. So you go to a beautiful boutique chocolate store and you spend about half an hour picking out beautiful individual chocolates. You know, it's one of those stores where every single chocolate costs money. You're not just buying a box of it. You're selecting different ones. And so you spend a lot of time thinking about the flavors that your friend would love. And you know, you get it wrapped in a beautiful box with a bow, and then you need to look after it for 2 days and make sure they don't melt. And then you finally, you know, see your friend and wish them happy birthday, and you know, they open it and they're happy and they're grateful, but they're just not impressed. They're just not that happy about it. They kind of maybe take a couple of bites and then put it away and then move on with the conversation. And it's not the reaction you were aiming for. So how would you feel if you were in the situation where you've taken the time to give someone a gift and it's not the reaction you were hoping for? They're not they're just not in love with it. They don't love it as you thought they would. How would you feel? A little annoyed? Yes, absolutely. Disappointed? Upset? Absolutely. Sad? It's their opinion of what they think, but it's the thought that counts? Yeah. Reflective? Maybe they don't like chocolates as much as me. Next time, no chocolate. Yep, absolutely. The thought, where have I gone wrong? Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we would be feeling disappointed. Next slide, please. I know with myself too, I should have put more thought into this. I may feel unappreciated because we chose those chocolates just for him or her. Yeah, absolutely. Next slide, please. So I don't know who's watched the Avengers, but I just thought of Tony Stark when I was putting this slide together. Like, just the thought would be, why did I even bother? And so this actually happened to me. This happened about 10 years ago. I had done the exact thing of selecting chocolates, making sure they don't melt for a few days, and then on a train journey for 13 hours to go see my dad for his birthday. And then on his birthday, I gave him the box of chocolates. He took like a couple of bites and then just kind of put it back in the fridge. And I thought, wow, I don't think he liked it at all. I don't think he actually liked that gift. And I was devastated, but I was so disappointed. And I thought, oh my gosh, why did I bother? I am never buying a gift for anyone ever again. I got into this whole cycle in my head of like complete and utter disappointment. And it was only until a few years later I realized what I could have done better. So next slide, please. Some people might have heard of this book, The 5 Languages of Love. It's by Gary Chapman, and he talks about how we give love in the way we want to receive it. And there are 5 different ways in which that can be given. There are 5 different languages. So my dad, well, what I was doing was giving love in the way I like to receive it, which is receiving gifts. And that's one of the languages down the bottom there in the diagram. But when I thought about it, and after I read this book, I realized, oh my goodness, my dad, gifts for him is like number 5. His number 1 is quality time. So he doesn't care about how much money you spend or how much thought you've put into a gift. He just wants to spend time with you. He just wants to be in the same room talking or walking or driving. He just wants to be together. And so the other 3, so there's quality time, which is, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just doing it together, and that makes you feel loved. Like I said, receiving gifts. You feel loved when you receive a gift, and it's not about how much money, but it's about the thought that goes into it. Then we've got acts of service, which is you do something for someone that they could do for themselves, but as an act of love, you've done it for them. So you've ironed their shirt in the morning, or you've cooked them dinner, or you've picked up their kids from school, and that's an act of service. Then there's physical touch, which is hugs and holding hands, and you're like cuddling on the couch with your mom watching TV. So you need to feel physical touch in order to feel loved. You don't need anything else but just maybe a hug every day. And then the last one is words of affirmation. So you need to hear it. You need to hear, I love you. Wonderful job. You did really great today. So you need those words of affirmation. And so as you're going through those 5, there might be 1 or 2 that really stand out for you. And so my dad, receiving gifts was number 5 for him. His was quality time. And so when my brother and I were trying to figure out a few years later what to do for his 50th birthday, my brother was thinking, oh, let's get him the latest television and, like electronic devices. And I said, I just don't think that's going to work for Dad. Next slide, please. So what we ended up doing, I said, let's do something in terms of quality time. We organized a horse riding adventure with my mom and dad and our boyfriends and girlfriends at the time, which is now my husband and my brother's wife. So the 6 of us went on this horse ride in the Hunter Valley, which is wine country. So there was just beautiful vineyards. And it was 2 hours. My grandparents were sitting at the base waiting for us to come back, and they were taking photos along the way. And when we returned, we had lunch. And all we had were the photos to show for it, but it was the best thing that we could have given Dad because it was just pure quality time. All of us were in the same spot, and he couldn't have asked for anything more. And so the thing to remember, next slide please, the skill to develop is to give love in the way others wish to receive it. And so we can turn an unloving, a difficult situation into something loving consciously by knowing how others wish to receive love. You also can understand when people feel hurt and unloved by knowing their love language. So say, for example, a words of affirmation person will feel horrible if someone shouts at them or yells at them or calls them names, for example. Another person will feel, say the physical touch person will feel really unloved if they get the cold shoulder and they're ignored. Another person will feel really horrible if you haven't seen them in a long time, or you haven't spoken to them on the phone in a long time, and perhaps you've just sent a text message, and they're a quality time person. So they're not wanting words of affirmation, they're wanting your time. So it's good to know your love language, and there's a link on this, a few slides prior to this one, that takes you to a test that you can do, and it's a series of questions that then tells you the order in which your love languages fall. It's a good skill to have in your back pocket. Okay, next slide, please. On to the next scenario. Okay, so this one's called, number 2, a strange encounter. So imagine that you're at a wedding and you only know a handful of people there, and you're seated next to an older person. Let's say it's a man who, when you introduce yourself to him, you've never met this person before in your life, but when you introduce yourself to him, he says, "Oh, I've heard about you. You're the handsome but crazy one." How would you react? How would you feel? I'd laugh awkwardly. Yeah. Next slide, please. I'd be angry. Yeah, absolutely. I think, who are you to think you know me? Yeah, absolutely. Would think, who would have said that about me? Yeah. Would greet him, but just go with the flow. Yeah. So this did happen to me. It was about 6 years ago when I was at a wedding, and I really only knew the bride and groom and their parents. And I was with my husband, and the older man, he was probably about 60, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've heard about you. You're the cute but nutty one." Next slide, please. And I was really taken aback because I'd never met this person before, and he's telling me I'm cute but nutty. So I had the same thought. I'm like, that's not really a compliment. I don't feel that's a compliment, not the way you said it. Because my husband said to him, "Oh, you know, where did you hear that? Who told you this?" And he said, no, I'm not going to name names. So I was really offended at the time. I thought, oh my gosh, what do my friends think of me? You know, what do they think of me that that they would, if they had 2 adjectives to describe me to their family and friends, why would they say cute and nutty? Surely there's more to it than just that. So that really pushed my buttons. And I didn't really know what to do at the time, but I could feel the sadness, the disappointment, the hurt, the anger, everything in my stomach. But it was the day before the wedding, and so it was not appropriate to go and talk to them about it at that time. There were 2 things that I did do because of this event. I reflected, and I thought to myself, can you please go back to the previous slide? Thank you. I reflected, and I thought, okay, if these are my buttons and my triggers, why are these words making me upset? Why are these words making me upset? Because I know, for example, there are certain things that people can say to me that just wouldn't affect me. So if someone told me that they thought I was sexist or racist or homophobic, it just would not affect me, because I know that's not true. 100% in my bones, I know that that is completely untrue. So it just wouldn't affect me. I'd laugh it off. But there was something about cute and nutty that affected me. So I really introspected, and I was asking Swami, what is it about these words that are pushing my buttons? And what I realized was, it was the time when I was transitioning from physio to coaching and energy work, and energy healing and energy work, hypnotherapy, Reiki, past life regression, all the things that I was learning and practicing is not mainstream. And so I would get these comments a lot, like, "Oh, that's a bit crazy, that's a bit nutty." You know, so there was these words were coming at me in that area of my life. And so then when I'm at this wedding and this is what's coming at me, I have the same reaction of, you know, how dare you? What's that about? And the reason why it affected me is because there was a part of me that had not fully embraced my new path, my new career. There was something that had not yet fully owned my path and what I'm doing. And so once I realized that, I did some internal work and I released the buttons in the way that I've learnt to. There are different ways, but it's good to know what works for you in releasing these buttons, because I had to remember that that the buttons are inside me. So if you think that you've got a big wound and then someone throws salt at you, it's going to hurt, it's going to sting. But if the wound is healed completely, no amount of salt is going to affect you. And so the buttons that we have inside, they're our buttons. People are pushing our buttons. We can't go and ask every single person to stop pushing our buttons. That's not how it works. We need to go in and get rid of the buttons. And so it's our responsibility to manage and release these buttons. So the first thing is I introspected. And then after they came back from their honeymoon, I spoke to the bride and the groom, my friends, and I said to them, you know, this was really uncomfortable for me at the night before your wedding, and I was really upset about it, but I reflected on it, and this is why it affected me. It was nothing you did. But what I realized was that if you had described me as cute but nutty, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, my friends don't know me, is that all they think of me? I realized that we don't know how much we value each other because it's unspoken. So I said to them, I actually did this in an email because they hadn't come back from their honeymoon yet. They were due in a day or two. And I said to them, so what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is write a list, both of you, write a list of everything you love and value about me. And what I did was, in that email, I had 2 separate Word documents, and I had written, and I said, I've written a list for each of you of everything I love and admire and adore and value about each of you, so that we are very clear on how we feel about each other. And it sounds like such a weird thing to ask your friends to do, but I swear, it was so good, because what happened was we communicated how we truly felt about each other. So I didn't have the assumption anymore of what I thought they thought about me. Now it was clear. We understood where we stood with each other. And so if anyone in the future came up to me and said, oh, you know, your friend says that you're cute but nutty, I know that that's not all they think about me. They have a whole other list of all the things that they see in me. And so that was really a really difficult situation. That was very difficult to remain loving because I was so triggered and so upset. But thankfully, Swami helped me overcome that, just with self-reflection, but also with assertiveness and action to bring healing to a situation that could have really disconnected me from people that were really, I thought were really good friends of mine, and they really are. It just brought us closer together. Next slide, please. So the skill to practice is to find what your buttons are and your triggers, and to change your reactions by healing them. And sometimes we don't know what our triggers are until someone pushes our button. And so that in itself is an exciting thing, because you're like, oh, I didn't even know that affected me. Let me explore that a bit more. I don't want that barrier to love to exist inside me anymore. Okay, so the third scenario is, I've titled it an endless phone call. So just imagine that you've paid $600 or 600 Rand, or maybe the equivalent, a bit more than that, to attend a 2-day training, and you really loved it. And at the end, they said, look, we're going to give everyone a call within the next week to talk about our next training that's coming up. So have a think about whether it's something you're interested in. And so you do. You think about it, and it's not something that's really calling at you. You know, you're thinking, oh, I don't really want to do this training. But the person calls you within a few days, and you're trying to tell them, look, I'm really not interested. But they're just really persistent, and they won't hang up the phone. They're not getting the message. And an hour goes by, and you're still talking to them. You're trying to say no to them, but they're just not getting the message. And in the end, they say, look, think about it again overnight, and I'll call you back tomorrow. So how would you react in that situation? Next slide, please. I would be feeling frustrated. Would you be feeling anything else besides frustrated if this happened to you? Think about telemarketers that just keep calling you. How do you feel when someone's calling you and you don't actually want to be speaking to them? How do you react? Yeah, you feel annoyed? Cut the call or block them from calling? Yep. What else? Yeah, so I would be feeling frustrated. Be patient but be firm. Feel angry. I would feel silly for not talking straight. I'd be angry. Next slide, please. Make excuses to leave. Every excuse. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so then the next day comes and you see the phone ringing. So what do you do? What do you do? What would you do if you saw the phone ringing the next day? I won't pick it up. I won't receive it. Ignore the call. Block the number. I would answer the call and tell them to stop calling me. Yep. Yeah, good. This time round, I would block the number for sure. Yeah, so this did happen to me. There's a lot of blocking of the call, which makes complete sense. So this did happen to me. It was exactly as I said. I went to a training. They called me up a few days later. I had thought about it and I thought it's actually too expensive for me. It's $2,000. And so I was so frustrated. I was actually so angry with this person. I'm like, why could you not get the message? I've been telling you no for 1 hour. And to make it worse, I was at work. It was 1 hour, my lunch break, my whole lunch break. I was starving for the rest of the day. And then they called back the next day in my lunch break. But between the two calls, what I did was I went home and I could not understand what had happened. I could not understand what I had done wrong. And so I was thinking to myself, what could I do differently? Like, what have I done wrong here? And so I replayed the phone call back in my head, and what I realized was that every reason I gave this person, like for example, I said, it's too expensive for me. What he said was, okay, so we've got 3 different payment plans that we can put you on. And then he described all the different payment plans. And then I said, oh, okay, I don't have leave, like I don't have the time to do it. I can't take a week off. And he's like, okay, but this week could really change your life and you've got annual leave. So what I realized when I replayed the call back in my head was that he was giving me solutions for every problem that I had to coming to the training. So he was not shouting at me. He was not angry. He was very, very calm and pleasant and relaxed. And so even though my blood was boiling and I was getting annoyed and frustrated, I couldn't really yell at him. It's really easy to yell at someone who's yelling at you, but it's very hard to yell at someone who's been very, very nice to you. So yeah, so he was being solution driven. He was giving me solutions for all the problems I was giving him. And so on reflection, what I realized was that I was saying no, but because I was hesitant and not sure myself, my words were saying no, but my energy was saying maybe. So giving these excuses and these reasons, I was not being clear about what I wanted. So I asked myself, what do I want? And then I gave myself permission to have it. So I realized that I do not want to do this training. So he called the next day and he said, hi, have you had to think about, the training, And I said, yeah, I have thought about it. And I've decided that no, I don't want to do it. But thank you so much for calling me back. And he said, yeah, no problem. Okay, take care. Bye. It was literally 15 seconds. It was like 15, 20 seconds and it was done. And the phone call was over before I knew it. I enjoyed my lunch, but I was stupefied. I was so shocked at the stark difference between the two phone calls. And it really hit home that me thinking I was saying no was actually me saying maybe. So the next day, when I said no, my energy all said no as well. And so I was very congruent. I was very clear because I was very clear about what I wanted. And so when we come across these situations where we're not sure exactly how to speak back, we can regress into two different spectrums of behavior. We can either become passive or we can become aggressive. So on the next slide, we've got a scale. Oh, no, actually, we've got Swami's quote, which says, never use harsh words. You cannot always oblige, but you can speak always obligingly. Bodily wounds can be cured by the use of medicines, but the wounds inflicted by the tongue can never be healed. That is why I repeatedly tell you to cultivate love and talk with love. I never use harsh words even when I appear to be angry. So this is just a reminder that we don't have to say yes, but we can say yes, or we can say no kindly. We don't have to oblige, but we can speak always obligingly, which is such a beautiful message from Swami. So when we find ourselves exhibiting passive behavior, or when we come across someone who is exhibiting passive behavior, what is going through their mind is a situation of I lose and the other person wins. So there's a diminished sense of self. Their main goal is to avoid conflict at all costs. They don't want to rock the boat. The other person's thoughts and feelings and rights are more important than their own. And so what happens is they become very timid and shy and quiet. And so they don't express what they're feeling or thinking. It's a diminished sense of self. So they've put someone else on a pedestal or higher than them. Perhaps it's a higher authority, or perhaps it's just someone who they feel they don't feel safe talking openly with. But they retreat and they don't express themselves truthfully. So at the other end of the scale, aggressive behavior, on the next slide, shows that when someone is in a place of aggressive behavior, they've put themselves above the other person. So they've got an inflated sense of self. Both are dramas of the ego. Whether you put yourself in the gutter or you put yourself on the pedestal, it is all the drama of the ego. And so aggressive behavior, the goal is I win and everybody else loses. It's intimidating behavior, it's dominating, and it's often loud, but it doesn't always have to be loud. It can also just be very quiet and controlling. So their thoughts are only my thoughts and feelings and rights matter. Nobody else matters. You've seen this kind of character on, TV or in the movies, don't you know anything? Why can't you get anything right? I work with buffoons, I can't work with these people. So it's my way or the highway. And everyone has to run and duck and adjust so that you try not to make the bomb go off. But whenever I come across this behavior, what I feel, the thing that reminds me to just stay calm is if a person is consistently angry with life or whatever, or aggressive, then in the day, they will find something to be angry about. And if I just happen to cross their path, then that was their moment for the day. Whether it's a rude taxi driver hooting and honking and screaming at people on the road, that person is probably doing it every day. It's not something that we need to take personally. Their behavior is completely their responsibility. So our goal is to be assertive, and that's what Swami is saying in that quote about speaking obligingly. It's where we keep people at the heart level, where myself and everybody else is on the same level. And the aim is to get a win-win situation. So an assertive person will express their thoughts and feelings, and they will ask the other person to do so as well. So when they're talking to someone who's exhibiting passive behavior, they'll say, look, this is how I'm feeling and thinking, and this is what I feel about what happened yesterday. Tell me how you're feeling about it. And the passive person might say, no, I'm fine, everything's okay. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But the assertive person will not take that. They will say, no, tell me exactly how you're feeling. I really want to know. And they will help that person feel safe to express themselves comfortably. Assertive people help other people feel safe. So they want to find a solution to the problem. They are honest communicators, and they understand that everyone is equal. So if an assertive person comes across an aggressive person, what they will end up doing is they'll set boundaries, or they'll help the aggressive person make decisions. So for example, if someone's shouting at you and you're assertive, you could say to them, look, we could continue talking about this now, but I just don't think it's going to be productive because it's really heightened. So let's take a break. Let's come back in half an hour. Let's gather our thoughts and let's have a meeting about it. Or maybe let's talk about it tomorrow. But I just don't think that this is going to be productive. And if the aggressive person keeps coming at them, what I do is I will just say, look, if you continue speaking like this to me, I will need to walk away. So there's a boundary there of how people treat you. And that's the assertive stance. We're not shouting or screaming. We are just communicating openly and kindly, but firmly. Okay, so passive-aggressive behavior is just in a little subtle corner of its own. It's someone who has not developed the skill of expressing themselves openly, but the aggression is just underneath the surface. And so what ends up happening is when they're face-to-face with you, it's like little volcanic eruptions, just little bursts of anger. But it's dancing around the situation. It's never about the situation. It's a really immature way of communicating. Often, the person will speak through texts and emails aggressively, but they'll be very passive to your face. And that's because they are not comfortable expressing themselves and they're not comfortable with conflict, but they have the aggression and they don't know how to manage it and they don't know what to do about it. So they're not solution oriented, they've got poor eye contact, but it's all about lacking the skill in expressing themselves. And the truth is, we can get very irritated with this kind of behavior, but what we need to recognize is that when they were young, it was not a safe environment for them to speak up. They were not educated and shown how to communicate their feelings and their thoughts. Maybe they just weren't allowed to give their opinions in their household. And so they would end up sulking in the corner or being a bully to their younger sibling. So the aggression comes out somewhere, and it's not healthy. But what we need to recognize is just a lack of skill. It's not, I just don't feel that there's this conscious intention to harm other people. It's just a lack of skill. And we just pray that they find their path and they find their skill. It's not our job to educate them unless they ask for help. I often don't offer any kind of guidance or advice unless it's elicited. So the skill to practice is to speak your truth and to set clear boundaries. And we can do boundaries by verbally speaking, and we can also do it physically by walking away, telling the person on the phone, look, if we continue like this, it's not productive. I'm going to hang up now. I don't want to, but you just keep talking over me, so I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay, goodbye. I'm going to hang up the phone now, and then you hang it up. So it's not like a slamming down of the phone. It's very clear and truthful. Okay, so let's go into the fourth one. The fourth scenario. An excited guest speaker. Okay, so just imagine that you're at the National Thai Conference and you've been asked to do a workshop for 90 minutes. And it's straight after the guest speaker and it's right before lunch. And you've prepared, for a few months on this workshop. But what happens on the day is that the guest speaker is so excited and happy to be there that they just talk on and on and on over like an hour and a bit over their time. So by the time the delegates come to your workshop, you've only got 10 minutes left. You prepared for 90, you were given 90 minutes, but you've only got 10 minutes. What do you do? How do you react? Next slide, please. How do you feel? You've done all this work and 90 minutes has gone down to 10 minutes. You would judge him or her. Yeah, absolutely. Calm down and think that Swami organized it better. Mentally, I'd be going crazy, but with sing bhajans for 10 minutes, yep, good. I'd feel upset. Yeah. Frantically think of summarizing everything. Absolutely. Yep. I would think he or she is selfish. Absolutely. Makes sense. Thanks, Swami. Maybe he saved me from embarrassing myself in my talk. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, so this did happen to me, and the way I reacted was pure judgment. Oh, how could they do this? How could they do this? They should have known better. So what I did do was I just did a small activity for 10 minutes because it was lunchtime and we needed to get to lunch in 10 minutes. So I did an activity and we just went to lunch. So it was not much, but it was something. But just imagine this now. If you know Winnie the Pooh, you know who Eeyore is, the donkey. So just imagine everyone's gone to lunch, but I'm sitting there in this room by myself, like Eeyore. And I'm so angry. I'm so angry. And I'm judging this person. And you know when you get angry, your blood boils and your temperature rises and you can feel the anger just swimming inside you. So I was thinking, how could this person do this? They should know better. They're an international speaker. You know, they've done this so many times. How could they be so disrespectful to other people's time and energy? What a waste of time, Swami. How could you let this happen? I was a mess and I was just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And so, next slide, please. So in that situation, when that's coming up, it's really tempting and easy to complain and whinge to other people because you're in this energy, you're trying to release it, and it's hard to release it on your own. You're actually just swimming and drowning in it. And so it's easy to find the next person and just dump it all on them. But what I did was, actually, no, this was an act of grace. I was in such a mess in that room by myself. And what my inner voice did, what Swami did was, he just sent a bubble of a memory floating up to the surface. And it was a memory of me about, I think it was 4 years earlier. I was asked to speak at Ishwarama Day. And there were probably maybe 200, 300 people in the audience. And I was given 10 minutes. And in my mind, I thought, I have so much to tell the children, the SSE children. I am going to tell them everything that Swami's ever taught me in that 10 minutes. And so the expectation was so unrealistic. And it was impossible. And so 10 minutes went by and I was talking. And then 15 minutes went by. And then 20. And you know, if you've ever been backstage on the organizing committee of any conference and the guest speaker is going way over, it's panic backstage. And I saw people were trying to give me notes, wrap up. And it got to 30 minutes and it got to the point where they sent a youth up on stage with the Arati bell to just keep ringing the bell while I'm talking. And I still spoke for another minute after that. And I wrapped up and I got off stage. And then I saw the children were waiting in the wings on stage, waiting to come out. And children have short attention spans. They were probably hungry. And I thought, oh man, I really need to work on time management. And so from that day on, I kind of did things to help with time management. But it was full circle when I was at the other end of it. And so when this memory came up for me in that moment, I realized, wow, this is the lesson I needed. Because in that moment, all judgment of that guest speaker disappeared. Absolutely disappeared in an instant, because I knew that I had done exactly the same thing 4 years earlier. Instead of feeling guilty and horrible, you learn from it. You prepare, you go to courses, you read books, and it's Swami showing you, okay, this is an area that you need to develop. And so I went and figured out how to use a diary, and you know, I would have a timer on stage. I would always keep an eye on the time. So I became better and better at it, and it's still something that I've got to practice. But in terms of judgment, the fastest way to stop judging someone is to notice where in your life you have behaved in a similar way. There's always 3 fingers pointing back to your own inner world. And often what we get upset with people in the outer world is a reflection of something that's unresolved and unattended to in our own inner world. The 5th scenario is yelling, screaming, and shouting. So just imagine that you've taken up a position in the SSIO organization and it's your first position ever, and there are elders and there are youth, and there's a mix of different ages, and it's exciting. It's only been maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and you're out for dinner with your friend one night, and you get a call, and it's someone from it's perhaps like the coordinator is calling you. And so you say to your friend, look, I really have to take this phone call. Do you mind? I'll just step outside. It'll just be a couple of minutes. And you go outside and you pick up the phone and you say hello, and the coordinator just starts yelling at you, screaming, shouting. And as you're listening to them, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Why are they upset? You know, everything was fine last week. And then in your mind, you're trying to think, what have I done wrong? So they're yelling and they're screaming at you, and it lasts for a good 20-25 minutes in this difficult situation. How do you feel? Confused, irritated, yeah. Awful, clueless, absolutely. What have I done wrong? What else? How would you feel? Confused and hurt, confused, scared, embarrassed, hurt, guilty. Would feel confused at the same time would try and diffuse the situation. They might just be having a bad day. I'd feel down. Yeah, so this did happen to me. There is a reason why we open and close with Sairam. Absolutely, very good point. I'd feel belittled. Yep. Next slide, please. So I was in complete shock. Absolute shock. And I was thinking, are they allowed to speak to me like that? That was the thought that was going through my head. I was in complete shock, and I was thinking, is this normal? Like, is this what's meant to happen? So the next day I contacted my, actually I told my friend, I went back to dinner, I told my friend, and she'd had many positions before, and she was a few years older than me, and she said, yeah, you know, these things happen. And then I contacted my youth advisor, and he said, yeah, you know, adults sometimes see us as their children, and they just come across and they shout like that sometimes. And something was not right inside me. I thought, oh, okay, am I meant to accept this, or am I meant to do something? Am I meant to just internally find a way to figure this out, or am I meant to speak up and say anything? What am I supposed to do? So the message I was getting from fellow youth was, this happens all the time, don't worry about it. And then I told my parents, and they were so furious, because not even my parents speak to me in this way. And so they gave me guidance to talk to the person, and I'm glad they did. And so I was stuck in this conundrum of, do I call the person because the phone call was the problem? So do I want to be calling up again? I thought maybe I could meet up with them, but we were in different cities, so it was pretty difficult. It would have been nice to do a face-to-face meeting. These things kind of went through my head. I really just wanted to avoid and quit and just not continue with my position anymore. I thought, okay, if my fellow youth are telling me that this is normal, then I don't want anything to do with it. I don't like it. I would complain to someone, poor me, this is not fair, why are they yelling at me? Or I could become Hulk and just go nuts. And so, like I was saying, I went through all these kind of things in my head, like, how do I overcome this? And so with my parents' help, I decided I'm going to write a letter, an email to the person, and just to them. I'm not going to CC anyone else into it. There's no need for that. I'll just deal with it one-on-one. And so I wrote a letter, and I thought it was really diplomatic, and I thought it was a great idea, but something inside me, which is probably funny, said, please don't send this letter tonight. And so I thought, okay. So I printed it off and I placed it by the altar. And the next day I woke up and I read the letter, and I thought, oh my goodness, thank God I didn't send it. Because when you're in that heated place of upset and hurt and sadness and anger, you might think that you're communicating very diplomatically, but sleep on it and think about it the next day, come back to it, and you realize, oh my gosh, that is actually really harsh. So I rewrote the letter in a much more loving way, as loving as I could, but in a truthful way. And I just said, look, we're both new to the position. It's new territory for us. but we're on the same team. We're teammates. There's no position, there's no authority position here. We're equal team members in a team, and we need to be able to work together for 2 years. And so, you know, let's create a harmonious relationship. And I said, I was really shocked at the way you spoke to me last night. Not even my parents shout at me in the way that you did. I would like to ask you to never speak to me like that again. You know, like, and I just said a few things along those lines. So it was as kind as I could be, but as honest, truthful as I could be as well. And I had to be very clear about what I was asking for. So I was asking for kind communication. I said, look, I'm more than happy to go through anything that I need to improve on and change, but I can't hear what you're saying if you're screaming at me. And so that cannot happen again. But, you know, I look forward to seeing you next time. So I just kind of ended it well, and I sent it off. And I mean, we had to repair the relationship after that, but I felt really good, because I think if I hadn't done that, I would have felt as though I betrayed myself in some way, and I wasn't assertive. It was really difficult, but I think because I had my parents like support, I could do it. And sometimes that's all you need, just one person supporting you, someone that you can trust, someone that's not telling you to go and scream and shout at them, someone's counsel that you can trust. And so I sent the letter off, and you know, for the next 2 years we developed a relationship. But what I realized is if I hadn't done that, then what I was basically saying, if I hadn't done that, is this treatment of me is okay. You are allowed to speak to me like that. And so if they had done it a second time, I cannot be upset with them. I cannot be angry with them, because I have indirectly told them that they have permission to continue speaking to me like that. I have not given them an opportunity to change their behavior, to show them where the line is and where too far is. And so by communicating that, I realized I set a clear boundary. Next slide, please. And setting boundaries is a skill that really gets developed the more and more you do it. It's so difficult in the beginning, but it does get easier, and it does get more relaxing. I was, you know, trembling and scared to do it in the beginning, but over the years, it does get a bit easier to protect yourself from other people's energy. And you don't have to, you know, energy is not violent, just physical violence. People can be emotionally violent. And it's really our responsibility to set our clear boundaries to keep toxic, negative, dangerous energy out of our little house. And so that's the final skill. Next slide, please, is to set clear boundaries. And to remember in the back of your mind, you teach people how to treat you by what you accept and what you pull up. Next slide, please. And so the last skill to practice is set clear boundaries. You teach people how to treat you. So the take-home messages for the webinar: give love in the way others wish to receive it. 2, find and heal your buttons and triggers to change your reactions so that you respond in a different way. Speak your truth and set clear boundaries. Can you hear me? Is the audio back? Oh, thank you. Oh, wonderful. Sorry, everyone. I didn't realize that the audio had cut out there. What was the last thing that you heard? Did we go through the skill to practice to set clear boundaries and you teach people how to treat you? Okay. Yes, no? Okay, so I'll just quickly sum that up. So that last story was all about knowing that you teach people how to treat you. and to set clear boundaries. So you kind of set the precedent of the follow-up encounters with people based on the initial encounters. So if you don't tell someone that they have crossed the line with you, then they won't know where the line is. So just to summarize now with the take-home messages, going through the 5 different scenarios. The first one was to give love in the way others wish to receive it. 2, to find and heal your buttons and triggers to change your reactions. So you heal up all the wounds so that no matter how much salt someone throws at you, you're going to be fine. You're not going to react. 3, speak your truth and set clear boundaries. 4, the fastest way to stop judging someone is to notice where in your life you have behaved similarly. 5 is to set clear boundaries, to practice being assertive and to catch yourself when you're being passive or aggressive. And also to learn case by case how to become more assertive, how to deal with people as well that are aggressive and passive. So that is also a skill in itself. Just how do we deal with people that aren't upfront with how they're feeling and they're not communicating, and also how to deal with people who are too upfront and aren't wanting to listen to what you have to say. So that's the skill of being assertive. And then to remember, you teach people how to treat you. And the last one is just to know that, we learn how to communicate clearly and kindly through conflict, case by case. It's a skill that can be developed. It's something we get better and better at the more and more we do it. And so when Swami brings a challenging situation into our life that's quite difficult, it's because he's developing a skill. And so the question to ask Swami is, what skill are you wanting me to develop here, Swami? Is it to speak lovingly? Is it to speak up? Is it to set a boundary? Is it to learn how this person feels loved? Is it to learn how I feel loved? Is it to learn how to love myself more? What's the skill that you're wanting me to develop, that I'm needing to develop right now, Swami? And so that takes it into a very specific sadhana path, and it takes you away from overwhelm. It brings us back to what we're here for, which is to move towards love, to be love. We are not enlightened yet, so we can give ourselves a break in thinking that we always must act in an enlightened way. We are learning, and we can also allow others to be on that path of growth. They are also learning as well. We just have to focus on our own growth and our own path. Okay, Sairam. So, someone has said, can you please review quickly how to physically or emotionally, mentally set boundaries for yourself and prevent negative energy from others from affecting you? Physically, emotionally, and mentally. All right, so there's 2 things that come to mind. I'll just answer this question quickly. The first thing is a time boundary. So if there are people in your life that are toxic and negative, perhaps they're in your family or extended family, you can't actually get away from them. They're not people that you can just cut off. Then you set a time boundary, and that means you know how long it takes before their energy starts coming inside your fence until it starts affecting you. And so some people it's 10 minutes, some people it's half a day, but know that time limit when you're with someone that's negative and carrying that negative energy, and allow yourself to excuse yourself. So go for a walk, go to the bathroom if there's nowhere else to go, but just eject yourself from that place and then come back and then start the clock again on that time boundary. In terms of energy healing, what I do is I surround myself with light, with golden white light, and energetically I feel that. So if I light the candle or the lamp, I take that light and create like an egg around me, like a big bubble. And so I feel that protects my energy. And then secondly, mentally, I say to myself, instead of asking for protection, which then I feel creates something to need protection from, because our thoughts are so powerful, and I don't want to be coming from fear, I want to be coming from love. I say to myself, only love to me and through me. Only love to me and through me. And so I set that energetic boundary around myself that I will only allow love to come to me and flow through me, nothing else. And so that helps me protect myself energetically, especially from other people's energy. How do you know when to compromise and when not to deal with others? Okay, that's a good question. So what I would say to that quickly is how to know when to compromise and when not to deal with others. You have to decide how much you value the relationship. It is completely in your hands. Is this person someone you want to continue having a relationship with? So Swami says, understand first, then adjust. So when it comes to compromise, if you compromise without understanding where the other person is coming from, why they're feeling hurt, what their needs are, what your needs are, why you're feeling hurt, if you compromise and adjust without understanding, inevitably resentment will build and it'll further break down that relationship, because you'll feel like you're chipping away at yourself and you're giving, but not receiving. And so compromise comes when you feel you've understood and then adjusted. So the first step is to try and understand the situation with the person. Now the barrier there is they might not be willing to communicate. And if that's the case, it's a difficult situation, because it's not up to you to do the emotional legwork for both people. The other person also has to come to the table 50-50. And if that's not happening, then you can communicate that. You can say, look, I really want to work through this. I really want to find a win-win for both of us, but I just feel that you're shutting me out and you're not wanting to talk about it. Maybe let's give it a week and let's come back in a week and let's see if we can work through this. But I really value our friendship and I want to work through this with you. There are people that you know are unwilling to move past always being right, and it's difficult to have conversations with those people. So I often don't argue with people that think they're right all the time. Let them be right. What tactics and techniques can be used to heal triggers? Okay, that's a good one. So it depends. Different things work for different people, and it depends on how your brain is wired up. If you're very left brain and analytical and logical, then coaching and strategy will work for you to find different ways of thinking and approaching a situation. So it'll be very objective and logical. So you'd find yourself a coach in that area, whether it's a relationship coach or a business coach or you know, someone that works with mental psychology to help you heal the pain. What they'll often do is go into the past and have you remember things that have happened when you were young, because the triggers have a time frame. There was a point where it started. There was a day when you didn't have the trigger, and then the next day the trigger was there. So you go back to when it started and you unpick from there. If you're right brain like me and you work with energy, then you go to someone like a kinesiologist or a naturopath or someone that works with the energetic system, the chakras, the meridians, regression therapy, hypnotherapy, Reiki, all of these things work on your energetic system to heal triggers that way. And so they'll pull out the energy of the trigger from your body. Okay, so okay, I've got one more question here. What does it say? What can you do when you go for family functions? You feel awkward because you are single and not married, and the family keeps on asking you when you are getting a girlfriend or getting married. Oh my gosh, I so understand that. Okay, so when this was happening to me, so my mum got married when she was 24, I believe. And so when I turned 24, like panic struck. And at first she was really kind of laughing and joking about it. And then it was getting serious. So I'd be going to Thai functions and she's like, why haven't you got makeup on? I really think you should wear makeup. And if you know me, I barely wear makeup. And she knows that. And suddenly these questions started coming up and I'm like, oh, what's going on, Mum? And then it was getting a bit more stressful. And when I realized she's actually stressed about this, I sat her down and I said to her, Mom, it looks like you're stressed about this. What's going on? And she said, look, this uncle came up to me. It's, you know, the people are coming up to me and putting pressure on me to get you married. This uncle came up to me and said, you can't keep the seed in the pocket. You have to take the seed and put it in the ground. And I said to Mum, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? And she said, it basically means that we can't just keep you in the house. We've got to get you out married. I'm like, oh no. And I said to her, Mum, you don't have enough faith in Swami. I believe that someone is out there for me. I will get married when the time is right. And so when it's someone that you care about that's putting that pressure on you, you can have those conversations with those particular people. And your trust in finding the relationship that's right for you and Swami being your matchmaker, your trust in that will trump any of their anxiety. But if you're feeling anxious about it, then their anxiety adds to yours. So the more relaxed you are about it, the less it affects you about other people putting pressure. So when people would come up to me, because my brother found his wife before I did, and so I would say, it's in Swami's hands, you're going to have to ask him. And that's all I would say. That's all it was. Okay, so we need to wrap up. Thanks so much, everyone, for all of your questions and for all your interaction. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. I really apologize for all the technical difficulties from my end. I'm really, really sorry about that. Thank you so much for all your patience, and take care, and know that Swami's got your hand, you're in his palm, and whatever you're facing, he's got you. Just ask him for help, and he will give it to you. Sairam, love you all. Sending you all lots and lots of love.
Thank you so much, Sister Sharanya, for sharing with us on how to be loving in difficult situations. I'm sure all of us have learned something from this session. Thank you to everyone, and let's close today's session with 1 Om and 3 Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Sai Ram.